there. And you laugh, let me know if it's, funny here.
Hey, Ashley.
Hi, everyone. This is Deborah. Jeremy, hey.
Hi, Deborah.
I was just checking in to make sure everybody got on here. Some people weren't familiar with Zoom. You clearly are.
No, this is my first time.
Is it?
So I've done some other technology before, but this is my first time with Zoom, but it seems fairly easy to figure out.
It is pretty good. And again, it gives us the ability to record this. So I will provide you with a link of the recording of your meeting so you can share it with anyone who didn't make the meeting once you're completed with this, okay?
Sure. Yes, thank you.
And I love your agenda that you sent out. That's the way to do it. It's perfect.
Thank you. Ashley, you're on now?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can now, yes. You popped on and then off again.
Yeah.
But now I'm hearing you. And
it's not
David,
letting me start my video for some reason, so but at least you can hear me.
that's okay. David, you're with us as well?
He might want to check the audio on his
audio, yeah. Well, he's with us. He may not have audio, but I see that he has checked in. So,
I've had people in the past who actually could not get the audio to work, and they could watch on the screen, but they called on their phone so they could still talk to you. So that's you can dial in that way too if you need to.
We'll let people know that if they need to do that, sure.
Awesome. Listen, I'm going to let you go. You're doing a great job. And just let me know when your next meeting is when you're finished, and I will set that up for you. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, goodbye. All right, so we are still awaiting some folks. I'm hopeful that it's more than, oh yes, okay, so we got some folks that are still connecting, so we'll give it a few minutes to have our folks connect. Hello, Martha.
Hey, how are you?
Well, thanks.
Great.
Good to see you again.
Same to you.
And we'll do introductions in just a second, Martha, or reintroductions for some of us. But we're giving folks time to hop on the line. So I should have had some trivia ready or something that I could.
Yeah, right. Well, yes. Oh.
Talk about the news of the day.
The news of the day.
Anyone see the viral video of the guy on the airplane who was punching the seat of the woman in front of him? It was
No.
kind of all over the news this morning. Just kind of talking about bad behavior. This guy, this woman wanted to lean her seat back, and I guess the guy was a taller guy, and he felt like he didn't have enough space. She wanted to lean her seat back, and he didn't want her to lean her seat back. So he starts just punching her seat over and over again. And of course, they
Oh my
started
gosh.
videoing it, of course, and it was on the morning news today. Guy punches back of woman's seat. So that's really all the news tidbits I had while we're waiting. So I'm gonna go just one more minute, and then we can do reintroductions here, and then hopefully as people are hopping on, we can go from there. So you guys, all but David, were with me at the Recovery Alliance Summit in New Bern. And of course, David is, well, I should let him say, but he's I invited him to be a part of this. So you guys know, we were a part of the committee for PreArrest and Diversion. So our table got together to talk about strategies for PreArrest and diversion. And the goal of that kind of being not just locally, but what's going on with PreArrest and diversion in multiple areas in Eastern North Carolina and in Southeastern North Carolina, which the different areas that we represent. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself in that, or just remind you guys that I, Jeremy, am with Coastal Horizons, and we are a provider agency, mental health and substance use disorder agency. And we are primarily in Brunswick, New Hanover, and Pender counties, but we do work in a lot of Southeastern North Carolina. My office does work next door in Bladen and Columbus County as well. As also, we do some work in Onslow County, some treatment services, and there are some other things that we do kind of Southeastern North Carolina. So that is the kind of the area that when we're talking about PreArrest diversion for clients out of criminal justice, we're on the end that is people are getting diverted into, hopefully. And so part of our job is to help that be a smooth pathway as possible, so that folks can be diverted, maybe even are kind of in a sense can get into services even before criminal activity is occurring. So we feel very very much a part of that process. So, so that's me. Who would like to go next? Martha, how about you? Would you
Sure.
go next?
So Martha Gillen, I work with vocational rehabilitation full time, and I actually have a private practice in Washington, North Carolina, where we do mental health and substance use disorders. A lot of at my private practice, we do a lot of DWI and court-ordered treatment, and I also have the contract for the RRS program, so I'm working with reentry stuff with that. I also do the diversion program in Beaufort County. And with VR, what we're seeing a lot of is that people don't know where else to refer these people to, so they're referring them to VR, and a lot of them aren't able to work, which obviously is the goal of VR. And it's kind of hard to figure out, well, where are the services for these older people who are getting out of jail and can't work because they might need disability, but they don't have disability because they've been in prison for 7 years. And so
Correct.
there's mental health and obviously some substance use disorder stuff going on too. So I see the struggle in with both private practice and with VR as to, where are the services for these people that really need them. And after I went to this summit with you guys, I was approached by one of the judges from Beaufort County, and they're actually doing a 2-day summit in March, and they're trying to kind of look at how to bridge the gap with treatment in the Beaufort County area. So I'm hoping that with this stuff and then with their stuff, we can kind of get some things, use each other and to help. So.
Yeah, it's super tricky. It's one of those things where things also tend to, and this is me kind of adding to that, but they tend to also, the challenge can go from from state budget to state budget when it comes to the fundings and things like that. I was with a mental health program. I oversaw a mental health program in Rocky Mount at one time, and we did a really good job when folks came out of prison. We would have folks enroll them in state-funded services literally the same day they came out of prison, and then work with them to get them Medicaid services over the life of the time with them. But then those services were cut, and we were unable to keep doing that. So that was always, really a challenge or a difficulty, because we felt like that service was working. So kind of from time, kind of year to year, the consistency of those types of things can be a challenge as well.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, sorry, now I'm kind of making it about myself there. Sorry, but
Totally fine.
I can relate, is what I'm saying, to some of those challenges. Ashley, how about you? Can you chime in?
Yeah, so I'm Ashley Stute with Albemarle Regional Health Services. So I lead our overdose prevention efforts here. I work for the local health department. We are an 8-county district health department, and I do policy planning and preparedness, and then overdose prevention is part of what I do as well. I was particularly interested in this particular group because we are really working to establish our community response team. And so I know I promised you guys that I would send that information out. And so I copied I included kind of the overview that we did, just like the 1-pager that shows kind of how we are planning to set that up. We're in the process of hiring a social worker, case manager type position who will help us facilitate an effort of really streamlining our referral process and for individuals who want assistance. And so I definitely see that the pre-arrest diversion is going to be a component of that. We've piloted some post-overdose response teams with EMS, so we feel like we have a decent handle on that component, but we definitely want to do more on the pre-arrest diversion side, and then just also the community and social referrals. I mentioned to you guys when we were meeting that we do have a partnership with our mobile crisis system, which is Integrated Family Services, and they've agreed to be our intake provider. So I think that's really important because we have resources in Northeast North Carolina, but finding them and linking them at the right time is often tricky, and making sure that they're the right resources for an individual. But we still also are very much interested in the pre-conviction side, in the jail component as well. We are very closely linked with Dare County, and they have recently gotten a grant, just as we did for ours, to really look at those jail programs and the pre-conviction pieces. So hopefully everything will be good to go there, and we can use this process to help us out too.
Yes, and definitely this really is kind of the hope for this committee also, was that we could kind of share in some of that and understand, as you know, as folks are going through what's working and what's not working. So that's really good. And Ashley actually was having you as a part of your health department was part of my motivation for inviting David Stanley. It looks like David is maybe on separately on the phone now, who is the head of our health department down here in Brunswick County. David, are you able to share with us at this point?
Let's try. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Okay, good. Hey, Jeremy. Yes, I'm the Health and Human Services Executive Director for Brunswick County, and which means we're a consolidated agency made up of the local health department, local DSS, veteran services, and a public housing program. And so we, over the last 4 or 5 years, have been working to integrate different programs under that fold. Also, we recently, within the last year or two, set up a substance use disorder commission appointed by the county commissioners here in Brunswick County. And so we are very interested in innovations, ideas, or programs that may be able to better assist our citizens in that space, whatever that may be. And there's quite a few ideas that are being worked on here in the county. The Anchor Initiative with their sheriff's office. And so, I believe we would have, when it comes to diversion type programs, I believe that we would have a welcoming audience here in Brunswick County for different strategies. It is interesting though, when you look at some diversion programs that I've looked at in other states that have expanded Medicaid, I always feel like when I try to look at those ideas and bring them back to North Carolina, I feel like there's some barriers in the way. And so with that being said, I kind of come to this group with looking at best practices and ideas and suggestions that y'all might have to be able to help us with some real issues that we have here in the county.
Well, David, and you actually hit on some of the keywords that we used when we met as our committee. We talked about gathering best practices. That was some of what we really talked about as one of the goals for this committee. Can you, because Ashley did share with us some of the things her health department is doing last time, but I really didn't get a chance to talk so much about the Anchor Initiative to them. Can you just give just a brief summary of what Brunswick does with the Anchor Initiative so that they can hear about that?
Sure. The Anchor Initiative is run primarily with volunteers, strongly supported by and really started by the sheriff's office. And they operate, to my knowledge, solely on donations. And the idea is if someone comes to the sheriff's office attention, either by their own staff that's working in the field or by other referral methods. They make it a point, if that person is looking to go ahead and begin treatment, if they're ready to begin receiving some type of treatment, then they will essentially look after that person, give them a ride, make sure they have a strong, warm handoff to a facility so they can begin that treatment. And that's the idea and the concept of it. I think it was, perhaps stolen from another town within North Carolina. I can't remember the name of that program and the other.
Nash.
Nash.
Yeah,
It could have been something with Angel in it, maybe.
Yeah, the Angel program.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. So yes. So we only steal from the best, and it's essentially started with the sheriff becoming aware of an individual and the sheriff staying with that individual in his office for about a 24-hour period until they could find a placement. And that kind of, led from there the idea that, that we need to have some type of program to address some of these things. And that's kind of where the Anchor Initiative started in Brunswick County.
Great.
Have y'all had a lot of successes with that program? And has the momentum really been going?
I would only have at this point, all I have seen is anecdotal information on it. But, I hear all the time that there are, positive linkages and referrals being made and success stories. As far as having actual numbers, I think they are in the process of getting ready to do some reporting from what I've seen to the County Substance Use Disorder Commission, but I haven't seen the actual numbers yet of how many folks that they have touched, other than to say that the program seems to be growing month by month, as just by word of mouth and the donations it's receiving.
Actually, I've had some anecdotal stories as well, just speaking to the officers involved. And I would say it's very similar to mental health in that there will be, I've heard some stories, wow, this really did a great thing and really brought this person back from something and got them to some treatment. And then I've heard stories, well, we really worked hard to get them to the treatment center, and then they walked out 5 hours later or something, So these are the kinds of frustrations that us in substance use and mental health have had for many years, and so it's unfortunately it's the kind of thing that you're going to have to deal with.
Well, and I asked because we worked with Chief Bayshore, who started a program at the Nashville PD, and he's come and visited us several times because we actually started looking at assisted diversion probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And so when we were looking at it, we were working very closely with Johnny Varnell, who was with Harm Reduction at the time, and then we were also working with Chief Bayshore, and I know that he has since retired, and I think they've lost some momentum, and so that's one of the struggles that we're trying to get around and really trying to work when we kind of do our program. That's why we've kind of taken this model of a community response team. So, and looking at that regional structure, just trying to make sure that we have backups in place and other ways that we can make sure that the system itself can sustain, because one person can't do it all. And so I know that was definitely a struggle that they have had, and I'm not sure if they've been able to get it going again or not, but that's what I had heard recently. So I think it's great. It's great when anybody can take, lessons learned and integrate them into their own programs and make it work for their community. And so I think that's exactly what we want to try to accomplish with this group, because there's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. And how can we really figure out the best way to share those best practices, what has worked, and how they could be tailored to fit your local needs.
Yes, agree. Well, y'all, let me just go through the next item on the agenda is just to remind our committee of its purpose. So I'm just going to go through and just read through what our purpose and our plan is, which is our group will work to compile resources and best practices on pre-arrest and pre-conviction programs in the region. During this process, we will not only collect information, policies, educational material, etc., but we'll also collect partner information, funding sources, sample funding requests, and request data on services offered. We will collect partner and engagement stories to provide guidance on how to engage others in these efforts, i.e. DA offices, law enforcement, EMS, probation, parole, task, etc. We would like to determine what data is being collected on the services provided and the gaps that are being identified so that we can regionally advocate for services and facilities in Eastern North Carolina. While we know there are various gaps in resources and there's a great need for beds and other facilities that are within 2 to 3 hours drive of our counties, we do not have the data that will be needed to make the case to funders at this point. So, you know, I feel like this kind of goes back to, you know, David's statement where he said, well, we stole from this other county. I say the opposite. I say that every county should openly, you know, be ready to share what, you know, I mean, this is what we really want, to be able to share what's working and what's not working. And if the Anchor Initiative is working, I know that our sheriff would gladly help others to know how to make it work. And also, you know, same thing with a lot of folks. We all know we have this as a problem. So I know that that nobody is gonna look at this as a you know, us and them thing. So I do believe that people will get on board with sharing of information, and I think that that's our goal with this is not just to gather the information from various resources about what we're doing, but also to share the information and help people, you know, maybe even, and I mentioned this last time we got together, maybe even a county that's not even considering, you know, a pre-arrest or diversion program, maybe they would see some of this and would consider it because of the gathering of this information. So that's all I've got to say about that.
And I think that'll help us, you know, a lot of times, you know, like you just said, making sure that we have this information for somebody that may not be thinking about it. But then, you know, especially since I'm coming from a region, you know, we have all levels of support within the region. And it's hard to know exactly how to educate and really bring certain individuals along as far as, you know, understanding the benefits of the program and how this will positively impact this epidemic. So, you know, I think there's strength in numbers as well, and showing that you're not going at it alone. And that's really the reason that our district wants to do it together, is that, you know, they have someone else to lean on. You know, they won't be overwhelmed, overburdened in this situation. So I think all that can help and really hopefully come up with some talking points for individuals who are needing assistance and trying to persuade and encourage their partners to participate in this.
Yes, yes. So,
Jeremy, this is David. One of the other hats that I wear, and I would be interested in the group's, you know, thoughts as we move along. But one of the other hats that I wear is on the Southern Advisory Board for Trillium. And if we, if there's any thoughts or ideas of where we believe we may need to pull Trillium somewhat into the, the discussion, if we could frame some questions or some comments or bullet points to be able to share with them, I would also be glad to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I just read off was about data. And I feel like that they do a lot of collecting for data. So anything that might be helpful from that side, absolutely. Yeah.
And this is actually, I think we work with Trillium in our area, and one thing that's really hard for me to wrap my head around sometimes when working with Trillium is the variety of resources that they have to offer across the state. And I hope this doesn't come across negative, but and there's some inconsistencies in the resources that are offered. And so, what are some baseline resources that we really want to shoot for to make some of these initiatives work? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think we are lacking in that regard somehow. I know what I have heard, and I'm not in your area, but what I've heard is that a lot of these assisted diversion type programs have worked really well in the southeastern counties because Trillium has stepped up 100%, and they have facilities, they have places that people can go pretty much 24/7 to get a lot of that case management support right there from the Trillium staff. We have Trillium staff attend all of our meetings, and it is a struggle sometimes to even get some of the resources and really get a full listing of the resources that we have within our region, much less any type of facilities.
And I think actually it's fair to say that the Elizabeth City area is very well underrepresented when it comes to those types of services, which is why that sounds like your health department really has had to step up. But I would also say, Washington probably, underrepresented. I'm going to speak for David Stanley and myself and just say Brunswick has always been underrepresented because we're a rural county. So right now, unless and until we're joined by some of the areas that are a little more populous, this group is a fairly well underrepresented group. So we feel you in some of that.
I'm trying to be nice. I'm not trying to be, because I understand it's difficult.
Yeah.
But how can we balance some of that? And I don't know that this is the right way to balance it, but I think that's a difficult conversation, but it's one that I think might be worth exploring.
Yes.
Right. And my perspective on it is, these other regional advisory boards that are, representing up in that area up there, I would try to find a way to make sure that is heard as often as possible and as loud as possible. and what that looks like for that part, because Trillium has such a large, it's from the top of the state to the bottom of the state on the coast, and it's such a large area that they're trying to cover. But I would certainly bring it to the attention of those advisory boards up there, and hopefully those suggestions make their way to the governing board. Typically, what I'm always told when I'm bringing forth stuff is they go back and refer to that annual gaps and needs assessment that they do, and that's where they say they try to develop their program based on what were the major gaps that they found on the prior year's survey. And so I would just, and there's a list, believe me, we working with our DSS is probably where I have some of the biggest challenges working with some of these kids that are going in foster care that need particular services. And so, I completely feel you about, being able to get these folks in the right places and the level of services that are provided in different areas of their catchment area and the state, and what's actually, what you're actually able to offer. And, and I've advocated that we really need to have Trillium, almost liaisons embedded in certain strategic areas, whether it's DSS or whether it's the sheriff's office or somewhere, to be able to kind of put your hand on and understand what's going on with these issues on a daily basis. And that's something I continue to ask for, and hopefully if we keep talking about it, we'll see some improvement.
Great ideas.
Yeah.
So our biggest agenda item, new business today, was to talk about how we would gather the information for our survey, how we would really gather the questions for our survey. Our target is to, I believe, Ashley, tell me the dates again. I think we were looking at April to finish the survey, and then around June to get the survey out, or what were we saying there?
It looks
I'm
like
struggling.
it's on page, let's see, what page is that?
Questions together by the end of April, yes. So
Yeah, so
essentially, a survey, it can be amazingly helpful or unhelpful, can be really short, really long. Somebody says, oh, this is so long, I don't want to take the time to do this. So the goal is to get it to where folks would be willing to answer it, and also that it gives us good information. What at this point are we looking at as far as collecting survey questions? That's my new business question today.
Well, I'm disappointed that we don't have more folks on the call today.
Same.
Yeah.
So, I really think we have great representation from various groups. So,
Yeah, I'm glad we have 3 regions covered. We just don't have a ton of people.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if maybe we do maybe a twofold thing for the next meeting, where we actually do a poll, because I know we did lose quite a few people at the end of our last, at the end of the conference when we set this time. So that could have been different. So if we do some kind of doodle poll or something to actually set our next meeting, so we see if more people are available, and if maybe we ask them to send, you some, like maybe 4 or 5 questions from their perspective that would be helpful, that you can compile by a certain date, that it will at least give us a starting point to talk about during our next meeting.
And I will say there were some more Brunswick folks, not that it could potentially make it very Brunswick heavy, but I sent this out to some of my folks in an alternative treatment court program, and they were very interested, but unfortunately they had court that started today at I think 1:30 was the staffing, so they weren't able to pop in. So certainly that would maybe bring in some of those folks that weren't able to come in there. But yeah, we do want to also include, we had some folks from New Bern that were there and other places. So love to get them back on board.
Yeah. I think we still have some time for sure, but April will be here before you know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you send out an email, then people can kind of respond when it's convenient for them too, instead of, being like, oh, 1 o'clock on a Thursday, judge, attorneys, those guys might be in court. It's hard to tell, but I think that might they might be, I feel like they're a lot more likely to be like, oh, I can send 4 to 5 questions for the survey at least. And then hopefully from there, we can figure out a better time to do another meeting.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing is the proposal at this point is to table new business till next time until we can get some more participants as far as the questions for the survey. Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Okay.
This is David. That sounds good to me. Jeremy, one question though that'll help me as we go along, and I'm sure maybe y'all have had other opportunity to talk about the specific type of data that we're looking for, but could you give me a little flavor of kind of what we are seeking in the survey from a data standpoint? What is it? What is it that we're really trying to capture?
Ashley, do you want to speak to that?
So I think the way we talked about it at the conference was getting an understanding of what programs are currently in existence related to pre-arrest and pre-conviction. Like for instance, your program there in Brunswick County named the Anchor program is very similar to the Angel program. And so really kind of getting more of a summary of that and the tools in place that you utilize. Are there policies, are there procedures, who are the key players, how does the program look, are you willing to share resources and samples and those types of things. So it's really more of just an assessment of existing resources and programs that are in existence.
Going to be very much information gathering is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Understand it. And would that also incorporate maybe some, providers that might be touching or where the Anchor initiative, let's say there are providers out there that are assisting,
Right.
listing those providers as part of that network or web as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
And so as an example, one of the Anchor Initiative's partners in Brunswick County, and I'm just talking this out to make sure I understand what we need. There's a group called Brunswick Christian Recovery, another nonprofit, which the Anchor Initiative will, there's an assessment done, but essentially if that particular provider, which, basically provides the shelter, it's the 12-step program. I think they're getting ready to roll into some clinical pieces, but we would want them listed as well. When we trying to say this is the Anchor Initiative and what they do, we want to show all of those networks such as that in capturing what's being captured in this data.
Correct.
I think that's a fantastic point, is basically how wide a net are we casting on this? We're not just talking about those who are doing the diverting, but also those who are receiving the diversion, those who are partnering. Yeah, absolutely. And those are important elements to that for sure.
Right. And so,
sorry, I was just going to say, we've got on this document that what we're saying is that we'd actually send the survey to, public health, sheriff's association, county managers, DA's offices, probation, East Point and Trillium, and then other providers as well, because we want to do exactly that. We want to get those varying perspectives. And then, there could be situations where various partners are working on something, I hate to say in a silo, but it could be. And so they're not really, some of their local and regional partners aren't aware that this is actually going on. And so maybe we can connect some more dots as well.
absolutely. Yeah. And somebody had mentioned mobile crisis as being an integral way maybe to do intake or something. And I agree with that. And so, I guess we need to make sure, that they are, certainly part of the answer to the questions that we're asking. Again, with them though, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I don't want to derail us too far, but, mobile crisis concerns me a little bit as we move forward with Medicaid transformation, because I'm not sure exactly who their payers are going to be moving forward. And mobile crisis scares me a little bit because it's almost like, depending on which insurance company which insurance company you're under, that's going to decide who the payer for the individual is going to be. And I mean, I don't see us going and asking these individuals while they're in the middle of a crisis, who do you have your insurance with,
Right.
and then trying to decide which mobile crisis is going to respond, who has a contract or not. See, right now, Trillium does all that,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure what that looks like moving forward.
That's true. I think that's something definitely worthwhile to keep on the radar as we move through this Medicaid transformation and what we're looking at. And hopefully if we can get some best practices already in place, then we'll have the tried and true that they can't argue with us so much. But yeah, we were the ones that I mentioned the mobile crisis piece because, as I mentioned, we've heard, from various partners, that Trillium in that New Hanover area and even I think in the Fayetteville area is very robust. And so Trillium actually serves in a lot of cases as the PreArrest diversion intake provider. Like they have case managers that are employed and they can take them to a facility pretty much 24/7, or I think maybe the Fayetteville facility is like a 23-hour-a-day facility. Like they can't say they're 24 hours, so they close down for 1 hour.
Right.
So
I believe they opened something very similar in Jacksonville
okay.
called the Dix Center as well. So.
Yeah. So, we don't have anything like that. And so we were really searching for a way that we would have that 24/7. And so we were very excited when Mobile Crisis said that they could be that intake provider. They could essentially be that initial contact, just like it's a mobile crisis situation, and we'll establish forms and the partners, and then they'll turn that individual over to our social worker case manager. So, but they'll help stay in touch and kind of facilitate the initial detox treatment component. And then we'll be able to help with the rest.
Sounds good.
So I'd like to maybe look at least saying a day that we could have the meeting next time. Even if we don't set the time and we kind of put the time out there for folks a little bit more. Is anyone able to do the 5th of March coming up at any point?
And Jeremy, are we talking about doing it virtually or in person?
Yeah, this is we'll again do the same format.
Okay.
As of now, I could do that day.
Okay.
Right now, it looks good for me, Jeremy.
Yep,
Okay.
I can do that too.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll send out. I don't know how to do a doodle poll, but I know somebody in IT does, and I will call them and ask them how to do that, and send out a doodle poll for the 5th of March, and then just ask about times that folks could participate, and we'll go from there to see if we can get a little better participation for this.
Okay.
Ashley, will you be able to just provide us some wrap-up notes from today?
Yeah,
Or is
I've
the
kind
asking
of
one?
done is just kind of jotted down who our attendees were, the
Yep.
overview and introductions. We've had a discussion of our goals and efforts. It was more just getting everybody on the same page, no real change
Exactly.
to what we're
Yes.
doing, and then just documenting kind of the next steps. So,
Right. And yeah, sounds good. And we're going to ask, maybe even to the same point that David made about, that we are focused on kind of the net and how broadly we wanted to look and make sure that when we're looking at who we're gathering information from and the kind of questions we're asking, we're capturing the information from these multiple sources, so that when folks are kind of coming in with this.
Yep.
So All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time today. And we'll see you in, looks like 3 weeks.
Thank you,
Sounds
Jeremy.
good. Thanks.
Have a good one.
Everyone, have a good day.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye, you too.
Bye-bye.